Hi, this is Sean D'Souza, and you're listening to the 3-Month Vacation Podcast. This podcast isn't some magic trick about how to work less. Instead, it's about how to really enjoy the work that you do and to enjoy your vacation time. Hi, it's Sean, and you're listening to the 3-Month Vacation. What would you do if you reached out to someone by email and they didn't respond? Well, here's what I did. As you know, I've been very interested in photography, and I've been reaching out to people so that I could photograph them at their workplace. Now, this is free. There is no catch, and they get to use all the photographs. You'd think that if people saw the website and the quality of the photographs, that they would respond right away. But they don't. And sometimes it's just because of ego. Maybe they're a big organization like the zoo, and they think, who's this person? Why should we bother? So they don't respond. But often it is a very small company. This story is about a blacksmith. I read about how he was conducting these courses, and I was very keen to take photographs of him as he went about his work. And so I wrote him an email, and he didn't respond. So I wrote a second email. Still no response. He lives 3.5 hours away from me, up a hill far in the countryside. And so one day, on Christmas Eve, I drove to his place, said hello, and asked him if he had received my emails. And he said yes, and he was planning to respond. But I never got a response. So what is the point of what I'm telling you? Why am I telling you this story? One of the things that I've learned in my life is that when people say no, they are just saying not now. We may take the no personally. We may think that they are saying no to us. But in fact, what they're really going through is they're trying to evaluate whether you're just a waste of time, whether you're going to get in the way. So they have all of these objections in their heads, or there is a certain amount of risk. Where is the catch, they think to themselves. Whenever someone says no to us, they usually have a reason, or they don't have any reason at all. They're just postponing their decision because they have other decisions to make, or there is something that is in their way. You might think they're saying no to your product or your service or whatever it is that you're offering, but usually that's not the case. What they're saying is not now. And if you remember that factor of no, mostly, not always, but mostly means not now, then that will allow you to go back. In the case of the blacksmith, I emailed him yet again, reminding him that he was going to email me, but I didn't hear from him. Instead, I heard back from his wife. The blacksmith and his wife had been to Amsterdam on holiday, and she read his email, and I assume she had read his previous emails as well, and she got fed up of him not responding. So she wrote back to me and said, when we get back to New Zealand, I will make sure that he gets in touch with you. And they did. Well, she made sure that he did, because when he got back to New Zealand, he sent me an email, and he said that I could come across to his workshop. And on the day that I was supposed to go there, his sister-in-law passed away. So we had to wait a little more time. Eventually, we got to his place. Yes, it was a 3.5-hour drive one way and then back again 3.5 hours. So it was a lot of driving for just a little time at the workshop. But that's how it goes. Now, this is not an isolated incident. I wanted to photograph the rescue helicopter service here in Auckland, and they're not that far away. But even so, I had to follow up with emails and text messages for close to a year. What happened at one point was that they wanted some photos for their annual report. And this is often the case when you're dealing with people. You start off some kind of discussion with them, or you send them something, and then they don't reject it. They just say no, which is not now. Or sometimes they actually say not now. But if you follow up, they get really impressed with your persistence. And then at some point in time, they will say maybe, or they will say yes. It's much harder for people to say no, or maybe, or later when you're offline, than just an email where they could just ignore it, or a text message where they could say, maybe, I don't know. When you're in front of them, it makes a big difference. Sometimes I'm at a shoot, like I went to a company that processes fish, and there were about 20 employees. 19 employees said, sure, you can take our photographs. But one of them said, no, I don't want my picture taken. And in this situation, you always consider the factor that this person is saying not now. I continued to take pictures of all the other people, and I showed them the pictures as I took them. At some point in time, that one person who didn't want their picture taken turned to me and pointed to something that was important. It wasn't important to me, it was important to that person. And that's when you know the not now is starting to shift. The no is starting to give way. When people start to point out at something, or they bring your attention to something, you know that they're starting to buy into whatever it is you're doing. They have seen something that you're doing and they recognize a change. And at least in photography, when someone starts to point out at something or says, take a picture of this or that person, then you know that not now has shifted. It is slowly but certainly becoming a yes. And that's really what happened. And there are situations where a no continues to be a no, but I still try. There's a fish and chip shop in Russell, which is in the north of New Zealand. I like it a lot. I like the whole place and I like the people there. And I've asked whether I could take pictures. And some of them have said yes, but the main people, the one who are frying the fish, the people who are packing the fish, they said no. So I asked again, and they said no. And if I go back to Russell, I'll ask again. Maybe they'll say no, but I consider it to be a not now. I think this is really important as we go through life, because we tend to get a lot of rejection. Whether it is a product that you're selling, or a service, or just a hobby like mine, you're most certainly going to run into situations where people are saying not now. And if you just think of no as being not now, in most situations, then you can back away and you can go back another day. And maybe they'll say no, but it doesn't matter. My experience is that once people get to know you, get to know your work, get over their objections, get over all the choices they have to make, they realize there's no catch, and then they say, okay, we'll do this under these conditions. And you say yes, and you can go ahead. So that's kind of the learning that has been sitting with me all of this year. And I just wanted to share it with you. So what's the summary of this one? You know the answer, don't you? No. It means no in some cases, and you better pay attention to that. But in many cases, when you're selling products and services and not being a pest, but just being respectful, it just means not now. And if you bear that in mind, you'll find it's really cool, because it finally opens doorways which seemed permanently shut. And that brings us to the end of this podcast. Let's find out what's happening in Psychotactics land. The thing that's happening right now is the launch of Suddenly Talented. Often we feel stuck. We think that other people are more talented than us. But there is a reason why they're more talented, and there is also a reason why they seem to pick on many different skills and become talented at all of them. It's all there, and it's at psychotactics.com/talent. So go and have a look at Suddenly Talented, and I think you'll really enjoy the book. I'll say bye for now. Bye-bye. Still listening? While I was doing this podcast, there was a knock on the door, and there was a guy who was selling solar panels. Like everybody who sells solar panels, he had a lot of information, and I had a lot of objections. I'd already had someone look at the roof before. I'd already done an evaluation for whether we could put solar panels, and it came to naught. Nothing happened. But he didn't take it personally. He asked whether he could send somebody across to have a look. And essentially what he's doing there is he is slowly but surely removing those objections. But also, I was in the middle of a podcast. I had all of my life happening before he knocked on my door. In the middle of a Wednesday afternoon, he wasn't selling me some chocolate biscuits. He was asking me to change my whole life. And this is one of the reasons why people say no. But he overcame it. He took some of the details, and maybe 50% or 60% or 70% of the people will eventually do nothing with it. But that's the way to go forward, to think about it as not now. And there you go. In the middle of the podcast, we have a live example. And that's it from Psychotactics Land. See you in 5000 BC. Bye-bye.